was well before Christmas, and now it was early February. She'd kissed him then, and he'd laughed. Worse, he thought she'd kissed him for underhanded reasons. She was still mad at him for that. She really was. But even though their relationship was strained at best, hostile at worst, she'd missed him. Assuming he wouldn't recognize her bundled up as she was for the weather, Madison trudged through the deep snow and entered the quaint store. A bell jingled above the front door, drawing attention her way. As was her habit, she immediately did a quick assessment of the small interior. Shelves lined every wall, packed from top to bottom. Besides Crosby, she noted a clerk behind the counter and a youth who'd been stocking the shelves. Unfortunately, there were also 3 men in the process of robbing the place. Well, she supposed that explained Crosby's fierce frown. She also had the terrible suspicion that he recognized her, even under all her winter gear. Had he been on to her following him all along? His cleverness was just one more appealing trait she admired. Guns drawn and faces hidden behind thick winter ski masks, the robbers mostly kept their attention on Crosby and the clerk, but they did repeatedly glance her way. Aggressively, one of the men gestured with his gun, saying, "What the hell are you people doing out on a day like this?" Another man said, "I knew we should have locked the door." Crosby said, "I offered, if you'll recall." So he'd considered locking her out. Too bad for him. Dressed as she was, the men couldn't see much of her face or body, but she felt certain they knew she was female. It was there in the way she stood, with her hands on her hips, in the long hair trailing out of her hat, and probably in the way her lips smiled. "Am I interrupting?" The man who waved the gun around barked, "Over here, now!" That suited her just fine. As Madison started forward, her awareness of Crosby sharpened. Today he wore a dark puffer coat, thick wool scarf, and padded gloves. Always, no matter the situation, he managed to look like an impeccable male model. Well, except for his sandy brown hair. He wore it just long enough for it to curl a little at the very ends. It gave him an appealingly messy look, in stark contrast with his otherwise immaculate appearance. Those dark-as-sin eyes of his never left the men standing before him, though he didn't look anxious about the situation. Annoyed, yes. Alert, certainly. She sensed more than saw that all he needed was an opening, and he'd take on all 3 of the intruders. In that, she could certainly assist. As she strode forward, she asked the stock boy, "Would you mind ducking behind that shelf?" Startled, the kid said, The robbers all started protesting at the same time, one of them barking, "No one fucking moves!" Speaking over him, Madison said to the clerk, "If you could possibly duck down very quickly." Crosby issued a sound like a snarl and took a quick step to his left, which effectively shielded the clerk. The older man dropped fast behind the counter. That got the kid moving too, and he jumped behind a shelf of canned goods. With the 2 innocents protected, she set about wrapping up the danger. "Bitch!" one of the robbers snapped, lunging for her and catching her arm in a vice-like grip. Madison let him propel her forward. Deliberately crashing into him, she grabbed his wrist to control the weapon. Because the floor was concrete and could cause a ricochet, she forced his arm up and back. The gun discharged, the sound loud in the small store, but the bullet merely hit a wall of beer cases. The yeasty bruise sprayed out. Fluid, even graceful, or so she liked to think, she swung the first man's gun hand around, and since he fired again, caused him to pop the second man in the thigh, making him buckle. Guy number 2 cursed a blue streak as he went down. The dummy who'd grabbed her slipped in the beer and went down, finally releasing the gun. She wrenched it away, turned, and shot him in the shoulder. A shout of pain mingled with curse words. Crosby had already gone after the 3rd man, making quick work of subduing him. She heard the snap of bone and knew it was the man's arm breaking. That one wouldn't be holding a gun for a while. Furious, guy number 2 held his bloody thigh with one hand and took aim at her with the other. Crosby kicked his gun away at the same time she stomped his privates. Her snow boots were heavy, her aim sure. As if in slow motion, the dude curled in on himself, his groan low and deep. She had just a moment to admire Crosby's skill, seeing him finish off the 3rd man with a punch that sent him collapsing back into a display of chips. 3 men, now all wounded, 2 with gunshot wounds and 1 with a broken arm. Crosby grabbed the one she'd shot in the shoulder, stopping him from scurrying away. He used that effective one.